We
Is
have
there a lag?
quite a few things to discuss this evening, starting with Tropical Battery, which has ruffled some feathers this week because they actually came out and restated their Q1 results. And it is a lot less pretty than it was before when, they were talking about the APO. So give us the highlights. Whoa, what on earth is going on?
So I think what we need to reference is the email that NCB Capital Markets, which was one of the which is one of the co-brokers for the APO. The email I sent to clients on July 3, which was last week Thursday. So I'll just paraphrase part of it. On June 25, 2025, Tropical Battery issued its restated financial statement for the quarter ended December 31, 2024, along with the financial statements for the quarter ended. Oh, yeah, right there. What kind of shocked me was that the third paragraph where they said that if the client did not explicitly state that they wanted to continue in the offer, that they're going to give a refund. So, just a quick
Oh,
piece of history. Tropical Battery was brought to the market by NCB Capital Markets in September 2020. So when they did $320 million IPO back in September 2020, NCB was the lead broker and arranger. So for them to take this decision to pull back, it speaks volumes because NCB is effectively saying that based on our revision of the financials and valuation, we probably don't feel comfortable with all that has transpired between the extensions plus the restatements. So NCB said, "Hey, we have to look for our clients." So in this case, they've decided to step back and give refunds to clients who did not indicate they wanted to continue. Sagicor Investments, which is the other core broker for the offer, they adjusted their recommendation to a market weight and participate, and they still indicated that they they see a strong growth potential for the company overall. So the offer closed formally on Friday, July 4, but we don't know if it was successful. So let me give context to why I said they were successful. The offer formally closed on Friday. However, the prospectus says that the company needs to raise 1 billion Jamaican dollars as the minimum fundraising amount. So sometimes, you might see companies have a minimum fundraising amount that's much lower, or it might be the actual exact amount for the offer, but there's usually a minimum stipulation as to what amount needs to be raised for the offer to be successful. And we're Tropical that's $1 billion. So with NCB Capital Markets, stepping back in that capacity, we don't know as yet, if the offer has been successful. They mentioned business development in their JSC disclosure on Monday, but we just don't know what's going on. And the persons were asking what, was so significant about the restatements that persons, were kind of surprised. So Tropical Battery would have released its Q1 financials in February, restated it in March, and their restated financials kind of scary because apart from the revenue being adjusted along those other key figures, the net profit swung from a net profit of $36 million to a net loss of $96 million. That's a whole $130 million swing in just one go.
how could they
Now,
make such a big error?
so they've said in their financials that there are time and classification issues in cost of sales and OPEX, foreign currency conversions with dumb rep, depreciation and indirect cost adjustments from the Rose acquisition. To be honest, Tropical, you know, they've been trying to manage this process of consolidation ever since they done their first acquisition in 2023 with Kaya. But look, they still have some work they need to get done. So remember, they acquired Kaya back in April 23. Audited was due, 2023 period was due November 2023, published February 2024. Audited 2024 is due November 2024, published February 2025. So it is based on these past events that it's clear that Tropical Battery does have some work to do in terms of work on the consolidation process and preparing its financials on time. So just to clarify, folks, Tropical Battery, the company itself, has its own set of financials, but the financials that we as a public get in the quarterly reports are consolidated. So the numbers from Domrep with Kaya, with Rose Electronics, and the new Jamaican businesses are all brought onto their income statement and balance sheet and everything else. And based on what we've seen in recent times, especially with this restatement, there seems to have been an issue in terms of that consolidation process, including foreign currency translations, which would have affected the presentation of these numbers. So it's pretty rough when you look at the fact that APO was extended twice, that just restatement, and then NCB, would have made that decision and told their clients that decision on last week Thursday.
Yeah,
Because
because that puts the target in jeopardy if their position is that they are going to assume that you don't want it unless you explicitly say that you do want it. Is it that they're calling all their clients or all the applicants to say, give me a yes or a no? Or are they leaving it up to the applicants to reach out and say yes? Because quite
so
possibly not everybody would have seen that message.
someone reached out to me on Thursday and said, hey, what's going on with this restatement? Because what a lot of persons don't realize is that not everybody checks a JSC daily, and even when
Exactly.
there are news stories going out, unless it's a story that grabs your attention, you might not even realize the significance of it. So somebody reached me and said, hey, what's the restatement thing? And when I sent to them, they're like, wait, what am I reading? And persons were just talking, going into Friday, between Thursday and Friday. And different persons told me that, in this case, NCB email, made them say, wait, what's going on? I'm not sure, if NCB reached out individually to all clients, but remember, in this instance, they said if you did not tell them that you wanted to continue, you're getting a refund. So it's for some investors, it may not be a good thing because they still probably want to participate in the APO. For others, probably is a blessing. But it's truly an unprecedented moment when you really think about it.
Yeah,
And
it's really unfortunate. And coming off the heels of what we saw with Jamaica Broilers just a couple weeks ago, but now this one it's tied to an APO, so it has a direct impact on the company's ability to raise funds.
correct. And it's just unfortunate because, as someone pointed out to me, restatements are not an issue. It's the quantum and the significance of a restatement that intends to impact person's perception of a company and its
Mhm.
overall controls and reporting controls. Because last year, Product Business Solutions would have restated its 2 prior years of numbers based on what they discovered in Costa Rica. And, for 1 year, I think it was the 2022 or 2021 period, the net profit was adjusted from $8 million US to like 2.3, $2.4 million US for that particular period. So you've seen these last 2 years, you've seen these major restatements coming from companies, and for in some instances, it has had significant impacts because Product Based Solutions (PBS) was suspended for over, I think it was 150 days, suspended from July to November last year. The stock could not be traded or the preference shares. Then in March, when Jamaica Broilers put out their Q3 numbers, and persons subsequently saw the disclosure about the USA operations, stock had dropped by probably, I think, 20% year to date. And a Tropical Battery, you know, it in this case resulted in NCB Capital Markets, a co-broker, saying that we have to change our decision and withdraw our recommendation. And on the stock market on Monday, the stock, actually halted down to 55. It's trading with it closed below APO price of that 87 again today. So, you know, these recent events have not been good for, the company or just the capital markets in general. Because one thing people need to remember is that the success of every offer tends to benefit subsequent offers. When you have this kind of reaction and situation, Tropical Battery, in this kind of instance, it can potentially hurt the next offer that comes to market.
Hmm.
Just because persons are going to say, what am I reading something that actually is true, fair, and accurate? And unlike Jamaica is not a market that employs what I would call strict consequences for these kind of events. So in Trinidad, for example, where AS brand is listed, every publicly listed company has to sign off, the CEO and CFO have to sign off and say, hey, these numbers are fair, accurate, and everything. So whereas in Jamaica, it tends to be the chairman of the board and probably the CEO or somebody else. In Trinidad, the CEO and CFO have to sign off as well that these numbers are actually accurate and fair, and there are actual consequences for these kind of events. In Jamaica, it's just a restatement, and that is it. There's no real monetary or other serious consequence for these kind of restatements, especially to a significant degree when it's material.
Mm-hmm.
So
Raquel wants to know, is this due to the lack of auditors that we spoke about before?
So just for context, Raquel, when the financial statements, so the audited financial statements that you see are prepared by the company. The auditors sit down, collect evidence, do their tests to see if what the company has prepared is actually accurate and fair as described under the relevant accounting standards. Tropical Batteries numbers that were restated were unaudited. So the first, second, and third quarter for all companies in the JSC are unaudited, meaning it's just management's numbers to their best estimation of what took place in the most recent quarter. It's not necessarily an auditor issue because in this case, Tropical Battery would have, or should, have had its accounting and finance team on the ball to ensure that the consolidated numbers were prepared in an appropriate and accurate manner.
Right. So I see Rob making a point here. Rob says the largest items that impacted the company are depreciation and finance expenses. I think the company will be fine because wasn't the APO to refinance that large debt anyway?
That's correct. The proceeds of the APO were meant to refinance, actually clear down the debt that was owed to CIBC Caribbean Bank Jamaica and a bond that, I think matured about 2 months ago or should have matured. So it's the refinancing, it's just the company reducing its overall debt load. And the thing is, it's not necessarily about the depreciation and finance expenses just going up as an issue. The main concern of persons was that yes, just significant change in the net profit, and the second quarter report, which came out on the same day, showed a 90% decline in net profit as well. So you move from a net profit to a net loss in the first quarter report of $96 million, and then you swung from a $20 million net profit to a $2 million net profit in your second quarter report. So the restatement is one thing, but the second quarter numbers did not give any comfort to investors or to even potential other brokers who are looking at this and saying, should my client stay in based on what I have seen and observed?
And then also to responding to Rob, yes, the APO is to refinance that large debt, but what if they don't raise the money because of this whole situation? That's a pretty real risk.
And the thing is, we won't know until we hear anything about the basis of allotment, because we don't know if the company met the $1 billion target with NCB Capital Markets deciding to step away and persons asking for refunds.
Yeah, very difficult situation. Lanesra says that's true, David. Investor confidence is shattered when these things happen. Absolutely. That's a big blunder. I hate to see. And I like Tropical Battery as a company. I like where they're going. I like the things they're doing. I like their foray into renewable energy. I feel like there are lots and lots and lots of opportunities in the space that they operate. And they're making some pretty big moves with their expansion by making these acquisitions. So I've been a fan of this particular company and where they are taking it, the vision. I've been sold on them personally. Of course, it's not investment advice. Consult your licensed financial advisor, etc., etc., etc. So it's very unfortunate to see this news coming out.